Station, everyone. Happy new comic book day. Happy Whiplash Wednesday with the PCP Army Bad Batch. That's right, guys. We're at it for another Wednesday, and it's just fantastic. It all started over on Nick Comic Culture's Cadets Toys and Comics video. I had to get that right because I got it wrong the last time. But guys, go check that out. He just spotlights his comic book shop, and we spotlighted his comic shop owner last week on the Tomorrow Show, or a couple weeks ago. And so you guys are going to want to go check that out because he spotlights them, shows you what they got for their comic collection, what they have for toys. And Rod the Rican actually picked up a figure that he was looking for from that shop just because of Nick Comic Culture's video. So guys, go check that out. And I will get to the rest of what's happening on Whiplash Wednesday after this, because right now it is chatting with the comic community. And my guest today, I am super excited to have here because he's a pinnacle of this community. He's a big inspiration to me, and I love him. Like, he's right there on the wall. I got my Daredevil hat on for him, got my Everything Comics. Well, guys, I think we should just bring him out. Let's bring out Bob from Everything Comics.
Station, my friend. That was awesome. Thank you for putting that together. That was pretty cool. How you doing, Travis?
I'm doing good. Yourself?
I'm doing well. You know, it's been a pretty hectic week, and of course, we're still dealing with all the emotions, you know, from the loss of our good friend, and I lost a family member, and so it's just been a roller coaster of a ride the last week. But I'm here. I'm feeling good, and I just want to say thank you very much for thinking of me and for inviting me onto your show, my friend.
Well, I'm always thinking of you, Bob. Like, I have you on my wall, so
I'm always watching over you.
Yeah, you always got my back.
Absolutely.
So for the viewers watching that don't know a lot about you, why don't you just give them a little bit of rundown?
Sure. Okay. My name is Bob. A lot of people know me as Bullseye Bob, as you can see by the hat. I am a long time comic collector, comic fanatic. Actually, I've collected off and on over the years, but I've always had a love for comics. I'm the guy that if you work with me or if you're around me for any period of time, my love for comics is going to rub off on you one way or another because I'm so enthusiastic about it. I have a YouTube channel called Everything Comics, which I use to basically just to post things about my passion. You know, I'm not doing it for a living like some other people, like my good friend Bueller. He's actually able to do that for a living. I just do this as a hobby, and I post content, reviews, and anything else that takes to my liking. Like this week, I posted a Wheel of Time video because of my love for that series, and so go check that out on my channel if you would. But other than that, I work during the daytime in supply chain. I work for Daimler Trucks. And then I'm also a pastor who works with people in addiction and recovery. And then beyond that, I'm just a complete total nerd. So that's it about me. There you go, Travis.
That's amazing, man. So let's get right into it. How did you start getting into collecting comics and reading comics?
Okay, so I would say that my first kind of introduction into the comic world was when I was a kid. The Batman '66 show was the first thing that I had ever seen with superheroes or anything like that, and I absolutely loved it. I ate it up. And then, when I was first starting to watch it, I only had a black and white TV. So the Superman show from the '60s or '50s or '60s was on as well, and so I used to watch that. And then later on, after I got a color TV on Saturday mornings, there was the Shazam show. And then they also had, I think it was ISIS. So those are my introduction to superheroes. And, I had a very tight family when I was growing up, and my mom was pretty much everything to me. And, my mom passed away when I was 12, and it was at a very poignant time of my life. And she was my world. And what ended up happening was I found out that there were people in my family who had some problems with my dad. And so when my mom passed away, they stopped coming around. Not that they didn't want to see me, but yeah, I ended up catching the brunt of that. And so not only did I lose my mom, but I lost this close knit family that I grew up with. So here I am at 12 going on 13 and very much alone and trying to fit in. And, I had started reading fantasy books, and I did see comics on the shelf. And so I used to go to a newsstand called Lincoln Pico News down in Venice, California, and there were comics on the shelf, and I just picked up some covers that I thought were really cool, and I started reading a couple of comics, one of which was Avengers number 57, which is the first appearance of the Vision. Now that book didn't grab me, but I mean it was a good story. I read it. But it was the next month when Avengers number 58 hit the shelf. And it's the famous story of Even an Android Can Cry. And this is where the Vision is basically, because in the first issue, he attacks the Avengers. And then, you realize that he was created by Ultron. He has the consciousness of Wonder Man downloaded into him, as well as being an android. And he ends up helping the Avengers to defeat Ultron. And in the end, he's got nowhere to go. He's a new creation. His creator turned out to be evil, and he just defeated him. These people that he has gotten to know over the course of this story, he attacked them in the beginning, and so now that he has helped them defeat him, he's got nowhere to go, and he's about to walk away. And the Avengers invite him to be part of the family. And the very famous scene at the end of the book, this inanimate machine getting visibly emotional, and a tear runs down his cheek. And when it's asked what is wrong with him, that they say that don't you know that even an android can cry? And that moment, in that single moment, I knew that somebody out there understood what was going on inside of my heart. I knew that they understood that it meant a lot to be able to fit in, to be able to have a family, and that's a very important thing to a person. And that right there showed me that there's something more in comics that went beyond just these pictures on pages. That there were some very deep stories and heartfelt pieces that I could connect with, and that right there was what hooked me into comics. And I've been a fan and a collector ever since. That story by Roy Thomas will always be the one that was my absolute just into the comic, collecting and fanaticism and everything that goes along with it. And I got a chance, not last year, but the year before at the Washington State SummerCon, to finally meet face to face Roy Thomas, who wrote that story. And I paid to have the VIP access to him, and I got to sit with him and tell him how much I enjoyed his writing and what that particular story meant to me. I had a poster printed of the android crying, the Vision crying, and he signed that for me. And he also signed my copy of Avengers number 58, which is the book that'll never leave my side. That'll be in my collection no matter what. I'll probably be buried with it. But it was a great moment, and one that I'll never forget, to actually sit in front of Roy Thomas and let him know those things. And he told me some things about that book that I never knew, which is it was the very first story he ever wrote where he had the ending in mind, and he normally didn't do that. And it was just a really cool time. So that's how I got into comics, and I've been a fan ever since.
That's amazing. I didn't know that you're that much of a fan of the Vision.
I love the Vision just because of the Avengers, but I'm more of a fan of that story because that story really touched my heart. I've had a love affair with a great many different characters. My very first favorite character was Thor. That was, I was a huge Thor fan, and then of course, I'll always have a special place in my heart for that character. but it was when the Frank Miller run of Daredevil came that Daredevil became my absolute go-to. I just have loved him ever since. And at that same time frame when Frank Miller did the Dark Knight series, that completely turned everything upside down for me. And that's when Batman became one of my favorite characters as well. So it's good stuff, man.
I was gonna ask you like how the introduction to Daredevil started for you, like, and where was the introduction to Bullseye? Because in your name it's Bullseye Bob, so you gotta kind of guess that he's one of your favorite villains.
He is. He really is. So, the Frank Miller run, when that hit, I mean, there was a great many things that really spoke to me. Number one, Daredevil, he introduced Daredevil having his faith, his Catholic faith. Me being a man of faith myself, it really spoke to me. He's Irish, which even though my last name, I was adopted, so I have a Spanish last name, but I am Irish. And so here was an Irish character from New York, and I've never lived in New York, but I've always wanted to, from Hell's Kitchen. And I've always had a thing about blind warriors. And so it kind of ticked all these boxes. And there's so many different allegories that you can pull from the Daredevil mythos, which is just amazing. But Frank Miller, the way he wrote that series, I just thought was amazing. And he took a character that a lot of people there at Marvel, they kind of treated him as, I mean, even though he was a good villain for Daredevil, most of Daredevil's villains were throwaway characters. So not a lot of them have a lot of reappearances. And Marv Wolfman was the one who originally created Bullseye. And if you listen to Marv Wolfman's interviews, he'll say that he never thought that he added anything of value to the Daredevil comic. And he's the guy that created Bullseye. So that will tell you something right there. John Romita Sr., even though he's not credited as drawing in the book, in the Daredevil 131, which is the first appearance of Bullseye, John Romita was actually the guy who created the design of Bullseye. That's a little known piece of trivia, which is really cool. So he's credited as being part of that. But it wasn't until Frank Miller grabbed a hold of Bullseye and made him his absolute nemesis. And if you, for a lot of people, they didn't understand why he was such a perfect nemesis until some people watching the third season of the Daredevil Netflix series, when they saw how the two fought against each other live action, then it clicked for a lot of people why they were yin and yang, with each other. And so, but for me, I picked up on really quickly the absolute homicidal maniac that he is, while still being somebody with this high amount of OCD, needing to be right on point with everything. And that makes a very dangerous, on-edge person. And when you have somebody who is like Daredevil, who has such deep-seated morals, and somebody who has no morals whatsoever on the opposite end of the spectrum, he became the perfect nemesis. And I've loved watching how the character has evolved over time. I think the only writer who has really captured the essence of what it means to be around Bullseye and just how scary he is, it wasn't until Ed Brubaker's run when he really picked up on it. And Daredevil was in prison. And there's a scene where Daredevil is in his cell because he was in prison at the time, right? And you can hear the cacophony all around you of everybody in the prison, everything that goes on, the games out in the yard, the lunchroom going on, the laundry room going on, and the conversations and the yelling at each other and all the cacophony. And then all of a sudden, Daredevil can hear over the course of the whole prison, everything goes silent, right? And then he says, "He's here." And they show the bottom part of the prison as they're wheeling Bullseye in, kind of like with the Hannibal Lecter mask on. And that's how scary this guy is. when the whole prison completely goes hush because now everybody's got to be on edge because this guy will kill you at the drop of a hat. It doesn't matter what you did or where you're going or what's happened. He just does it for fun. It's like a Wolverine being dropped into a chicken coop. And he captured the perfect essence of what Bullseye is, especially when you're around him. And I just absolutely loved it. So I've loved the evolution of the character. I think he's a great villain. There's some things that they've done with him that I don't agree with. Like I didn't agree with them giving him adamantium bones and all that. That's another story. But he's a perfect nemesis for Daredevil, and that's why Frank Miller used him so much over the course of his run. And I wish we would go back to that type of dynamic as they use him going forward. But yeah, he is one of my favorite villains.
And yeah, I'm gonna guess that Kingpin would be a close second. And I just want to like shout this out. Like you make an amazing Kingpin in cosplay. That was fantastic. Like, and
Well,
I loved when you were with Donnie Cates and like he was even like I don't know if like
when I touched his shoulder.
yeah.
Yeah, that was some fun stuff. But I mean, the Kingpin cosplay, it works. When you're a fat guy, it's about the only cosplay you can do. And so it worked really well for me. But I wanted to make it old school. I didn't want to make it, even though I love Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin on the TV series, I didn't want to go that route. I wanted to go the traditional, comic look with the purple pants and the whole works. And so that's what I did. And people were really appreciative of that. And so, yeah, I had a great, great time doing that Kingpin cosplay. And it's something I don't know if I'll do going forward because I am going to be going on a weight loss journey here pretty quickly. And so, like I said, with my bald head and everything, maybe in a couple of years, you'll see me go as Professor X. Who knows?
So on your journey to collecting and reading, you jumped over from just reading Marvel and DC. You moved into a lot of indies and that
Yes.
and one in particular that you fell in love with was Kanto.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because when it comes to fantasy books, I have a huge love for the fantasy genre. And besides reading comic books, we have to put my password in here really quick. Besides reading comic books, I used to read a lot of fantasy. So I love when I can see a good fantasy based comic. The other thing is that over the course of my years collecting, I didn't get too much into independence until I came back to collecting in these last 2.5, 3 years. And I probably have more independence on my pull list than I ever have before. And actually, I got more independence on my pull list than I have Marvel or DC now. And that's never been the case. So that tells you how good the writing is on these things. But Kanto was one when it first came out. I didn't really know too much about it. I remember seeing the reviews on Robbie's show about the book, and I wasn't going to start collecting it, halfway into it. So I waited until I could get it in trade paperback, and I felt like, man, I should have started collecting it much sooner because as soon as I read that story, David Boer, the writer, he really captures the essence of what story is to the heart. And, with this, I mean, outrageously drawn little Clockwork Knight in the midst of this sweeping fantasy story, it really touched me. It blew me away. And even though it's like a story where you think you know what the ending is in mind, it completely turns it upside down to what reality actually is. Whereas, people a lot of times will go on these great journeys inside of their life, whether it be issues at home or financial issues or, trying to conquer that new job you're going to. And when you get to the end result, 9 times out of 10, it's never what you thought it would be. And you'll believe that you failed. And then you find out that the journey that you took inspired so many people around you. that there was a success that you never thought was possible in the midst of that. And that's what happened in Kanto. In the end of the journey, it didn't, end like he thought it was. He felt like he failed, but his people rose in a complete, to a place they never had been to before because he had inspired them. And man, when that just hit home so hard when I read that first series, and it's still going, and I absolutely love it. The last issue number 4 that came out last week, freaking phenomenal. I love the Kanto series. I will collect everything that I can from it, and I can't wait for it to be actually on screen because they are making, I think it's an animated series of it. I think Will Smith's company is the one who optioned it. So I'm very excited for where they're going to go with this. And even if we end with Kanto 4 and don't get any more, it has been an incredible journey and one of my favorite comic books for sure.
I did not know it was getting optioned for an animated.
Yeah, it was. It's been about 7-8 months now. I think ago it was optioned, and that's when the book really spiked in price. I think you can't get it for less than $1,200 now. The issue number 1, and yeah, it's coming, man. I can't wait.
I'm excited for you, man. And you also was able to like have David Booher on your channel and talk with him.
Yeah, David Booher and Drew Zucker. That was a fantastic interview. I had a great time with those guys. I'm waiting for Kanto 3 to end before we go, and we're anticipating Kanto 4, which is going to be the big the big battle when everything comes to an end. The first series was basically centered around Kanto and going after the heart, and so that was reminiscent of the Tin Man. And then you had Kanto and gosh, I can't think of what the second one. It was off the top of my head, but that one was based on the Scarecrow. Lionhearted is based on the Cowardly Lion. And then the fourth series will be entitled No Place Like Home. So, I mean, all of the tropes from the Wizard of Oz are there, and I can't wait for it to culminate in the end. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I know he's mentioned that like the Wizard of Oz is like a huge inspiration for him.
For sure. But once we get done with Kanto 3, before we go into the series number 4, my plan is to have both David and Drew back on the channel for another interview and just talk to those guys about what's happened, what could be happening going forward, and then all the amazing merch and news as far as anything that they can give us as far as the movie or series or whatever it's going to be that's coming forward. I really love those guys, and it would be an honor to get a chance to have those guys on again.
So I'm interested to hear like any other fantasy books that you've read that you have really enjoyed.
Tell you what, let me see. Is my phone over there? Oh, here it is. On my YouTube page or my YouTube channel, on that Wheel of Time video this morning, I posted a list of what I could think of off the top of my head of all the fantasy series that I've read. And there's tons. So I'll just read you a couple. I'll let you go through the entire list yourself later. But I've read like the Earthsea trilogy by Ursula K. Le Guin, the Malazan series by Steven Erikson, the Rift War saga by Raymond Feist. I've read all of the Middle Earth books, of course, the Black Company by Glenn Cook, all of the Elric saga by Michael Moorcock, the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, the Coldfire series by C.S. Friedman, all of the multiple series by David Eddings. And then there's like The Sword of Truth by Terry Goodkind. I mean, I could just keep going. There's a huge list here. But I have read so much fantasy over the years. It's one of my favorite genres. I started with The Lord of the Rings, and I've just kind of built from there. A ton of the Forgotten Realms series, and those are all trilogies. And so, yeah, I've got a lot of hours under my belt of reading fantasy stuff. That's for sure.
I just started getting into reading Middle West. Have you ever read that?
Yes, by Scotty Young. Yeah. That's another one that I wish I was collecting when it had come out. And I actually I forget where I got it from, but I won it. I won the first two trade paperbacks, and then I just ended up getting, I think there was two more that came out, and I got the whole series and I read it all at once. Absolutely loved it. Here in Portland, right at the beginning of the year, we had this huge ice storm that knocked down all these trees because of the weight of the ice. And we lost power here at the house, and it was like, I think, 10 or 15 degrees, which is unheard of here in Portland. And it was freezing, and we had to get my father-in-law out of the house. So we ended up leaving the house, and we went to go stay in a hotel until the power came back on. And while we were there at the hotel room, I plowed through that whole series and absolutely loved it. The artwork in that thing is amazing, and it's such a great story.
I was like a little off taken by like the look of the fox at first, but it is grown on me just because in PEI our like animal is like the fox, so we have foxes everywhere.
Oh, there you go.
So like just seeing it like that, I'm just like, but I like the fox. Like the fox is like even grown on me as a character too. Like at first I'm like, okay, this guy's just kind of a dick, but like you grow to like him.
Yeah, absolutely. That right there is a great part of that arc for sure.
So moving on from comic books to kung fu. It's like you are a huge kung fu nut, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about kung fu. I'm not that big into kung fu. I've watched like maybe Shaolin Soccer and Kung Fu Hustle. That's as far as I went, like the comedy type ones.
Yeah.
But like, I'd like to hear like your introduction to kung fu movies.
Yeah. So, you know, my dad was a guy that was huge into movies, and he didn't have a filter when it came to what kids should watch and what they shouldn't watch. And so, well, you know, I'm this little kid, and he used to take me to everything. And so, you know, I remember 1972. I'm in the theater watching The Godfather. You know, I mean, I should not have been watching that movie when I was that age. You know, but 1972 was the year that the very first kung fu movie from Hong Kong cinema was released here in the United States, and that was a movie called The Five Fingers of Death, and it was a Shaw Brothers movie. And you know, at the time, I was so intrigued by the fighting just as a little kid. You know, before that, I was into dinosaurs, you know, and kaiju movies because those were a big thing at the time that they would show on TV. And when I saw these guys fighting with these styles, it was unlike anything that I'd ever seen. And you know, I'd watched the Batman '66 series, and they had fights there, but it was nothing like this. And so I ate it up like candy. I remember being horrified because there's a scene where one of the main characters goes into this dojo, and one of these guys comes up and just snatches his eyes out and then rolls them onto the floor. And you know, I'm 6 years old, and my eyes are got all big. I'm like, what is this? Didn't know anything like that was possible, but that was my introduction. And I loved it. And then 6 months later was when Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee hit the theaters. And talk about my first real like hero on screen. I could not get enough of Bruce Lee. I wanted to go back over and over and over to go see that movie. I think for Christmas, my family bought me the soundtrack because I couldn't get enough of it. And so that was kind of my introduction into kung fu movies, and I've been a huge fan ever since. Growing up, during the late '70s and early '80s, on Saturdays they used to have Kung Fu Theater, and that's where they would show all the Shaw Brothers movies. And then even before that, like after I'd saw Enter the Dragon, like 1973 and '74, that was the first time I saw my first Lone Wolf and Cub movie, which was another shocker with all the blood squirting everywhere and everything. But again, these martial arts movies, they were nothing like anything else that they were showing on TV or anywhere else in regular cinema. And when my dad would take me to see these things, I couldn't get enough. What was funny is, me being just a kid inside the movie theater, when the hero was on screen and he's doing all his moves and everything, in my chair, I'm mimicking everything. I'm kicking around and I'm punching, and finally one day, as I'm doing that, I heard laughing, and I turned around, and the theater was all watching me. And I, stopped doing that. But
That's the day you stopped. It's just like, yeah, no, everybody was watching me at that point. It's just like,
yeah,
no, not anymore.
I realized I wasn't in my own little bubble, that there were people around me. But I've been, like I said, I've been a huge fan of Hong Kong cinema, samurai movies, and the martial arts movie genre. Period. I didn't so much like American martial arts movies. Like, I got into some of the ninja movies in the 80s, but I wasn't a huge Chuck Norris fan or Jean-Claude Van Damme fan or Steven Seagal. I thought those movies were corny compared to actual martial arts movies. And I mean, there was a couple of them that were okay, that were good. Like, I like the Chuck Norris movies where he's, the soldier and stuff like that. But all the karate and stuff, like, the only Chuck Norris movie that I thought was great was when he fought Bruce Lee at the Coliseum, and Return of the Dragon. But yeah, man, I can cut it up with the best of them when it comes to Hong Kong cinema knowledge. I often hear about Quentin Tarantino and RZA sitting in a room and just deep diving on kung fu flicks, and I know I'd be able to cut it up with both those guys. So I feel pretty good about that.
Aren't you going to be chopping it up with Robbie from Pop Culture Philosophers soon about some kung fu cinema?
Absolutely. Actually, this Friday night on Robbie's channel, I think it's 4 p.m. Central Time, I think, is when he's doing it. Or 7 p.m. Central Time is when I think he's doing it. Anyway, we're going to be reviewing The Seven Samurai, Akira Kurosawa's movie. And that's not technically a kung fu movie, but it is from the samurai genre. This is a piece of art. It's a cut above your normal cinema. There are so many movies that have been drawn from this. The artistic style that Kurosawa had, the movie itself. I mean, the Magnificent Seven, our great Western out here in America, was drawn from the Seven Samurai. And so it's a great piece of film history. It's an amazing piece of art, and it just happens to be a samurai movie too. So yeah, we're going to review that on his channel coming up.
So by the time this airs, it'll be 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, the 2 weeks 2 weeks passed.
Okay.
Since you've been on that show.
So go back and check out Robbie's show where The Seven Samurai. It's going to be a great one.
So, loving kung fu cinema, did that give you an introduction to boxing as well? Because I heard you love to box as well.
So I come from a boxing family, actually. I grew up around the Olympic Auditorium out in Los Angeles, where they had a lot of great boxing matches. And my dad fought in the amateur ranks. My godfather, he was a lightweight contender during the 60s. My uncle was Jerry Quarry, who fought Muhammad Ali. And, these are all people that were influences in my life. So, boxing was something that was always a part of my life. Now, I did boxing. I was more of a brawler than I was a boxer. I can teach boxing better than I can do it. When I'm inside the ring, I can't stay disciplined enough. I want to take your head off. So, you do that. Anybody who's a brawler, I mean, your arms are basically gone by the time 3 rounds is up. So if I haven't taken you out by that point, I'm going to get peppered. So, I could actually teach it better than I can actually do it. And but it's always been a part of me. I love combat sports. I'm a huge boxing and MMA fan. I watch all the UFC fights, whenever I get a chance, and it's always been a part of my life.
Now, I'm not sure how far his reach has gone, but he's from the island here, but he's boxed all over, and he has a bunch of rings. He's the one that taught me how to box. Joe Borden.
I know Joe Borden. Yeah, absolutely.
That's freaking awesome. He's from the island here, and I was probably maybe 13, 14, and that he'd teach me how to box, and he'd be telling me how he would be he'd train some of the hockey players in that as well.
Very cool. So did you ever do any amateur boxing?
I never really took it that far. I just kind of did the exercising and did it just mostly to get out anger and that, because like I was at the time going through some transitions in my life and that, which I needed to let out some steam.
Very good. Yeah, it's a great outlet, one that I wish that they would use more often. I know when I was growing up, I used to go to the Venice Boys and Girls Club, and if any of us started getting into any rows or anything like that, they'd stop us, put the gloves on us, throw us in the ring, and just let us go at it. And I think if more people did that, you have a lot less problems, because we all became best friends afterwards. So.
Yeah, a little good fight. Didn't hurt anybody.
No, not at all.
The gloves are padded.
For sure. And if you get knocked out, you'll wake up. You'll be fine.
So I've never really heard, like, I've heard kind of the story about how you got it like in with Bueller and that from Bueller, but I've never heard the story about how you got into YouTube itself.
So, okay, so it was kind of a catch-22 and like a bunch of things falling in place at once. Basically, I had started to come back into comics from watching the MCU movies. I had sold my comic collection back in about 2000, and because of the fact that I had sold them for far less than what they were worth, it kind of soured me, because there were so many great comics that I absolutely loved, and I knew that I'd never be able to get again. And so I never thought that I'd ever collect again. I thought that part of my life is over. Even though I love comic books, I would still pick up a trade paperback every once in a while. And so there, were a number of things that, went into me thinking it would never happen again. Then all of a sudden coming back, it was through the MCU. And as I did that, I went to a couple of Comic Cons, and one of the things that really appealed to me was panels. I thought I would love to be on some of these panels and talk to some of these creators. And I was like, I wonder how I could get into doing that. And my thought was that if I could create a channel so that I could start practicing at talking with people in an interview style, that I might be able to, prove myself that way. And then, I started watching actual comic book YouTube channels, and that started appealing to me in a whole different way. And one of the things that happened was I saw, Travis's preview videos and some of the other stuff that he had collaborated with Comic Tom on, in the beginning. And then I started noticing he started talking about Mocha Express. And I'm like, wait a second, there's a Mocha Express right up the street. And so I listened to him like on another video, and then I finally looked up his email address and emailed him. And I told him, I said, I think you live like pretty close to me. You said if you're ever in town, look you up for coffee. And I said, I'll have a cup of coffee with you. And so that's what happened. I set up a time with him. We met at Mocha Express, and immediately hit it off. I mean, I had, I think, an hour and a half or 2 hours with which to meet. And by the time it went by so quick, and I knew I could have sat there for another 5 or 6 hours talking to this guy, and just about comics, period. We didn't even get to who we were. We just talked comics, man. And so that's how I met him. And then, I had talked to him about what I was thinking about as far as maybe starting a channel and stuff like that. And he's the one that encouraged me to put, to get that first video out. And so I kind of owe that to him. There was one other person that I work with that kind of did the same thing with me. They kept encouraging me, to just get that first video out. And then once I did, it was kind of over after that. I just started asking questions and started kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And the rest is history. It's kind of evolved over time into its own thing. And in the midst of it, I ended up doing some interviews on the panels at a Comic-Con. So mission accomplished.
And you've been able to talk with amazing creators and that. Like it's crazy how like one thing just leads and trickles out, and it's unbelievable. You never think that any of this would happen. Like,
absolutely.
Like right now, like between like you, Bueller, and Robbie, like I never thought like I'd be sitting here talking with you right now. Like it's like a dream come true. you go from watching these people and admiring these people to actually sitting and talking with them right now, like we are right now.
Right. It's amazing to me as well. One of the things that I'm looking forward to is one of my favorite cover artists is Shannon Mayer. And I've just finally got a bunch of his books back that I had sent off to CGC. So, and he told me, he says, just let me know, when you want to do an interview, and we'll do it. So I'll be setting that up soon. And that blows me away to be able to have, that type of relationship and access, to some of these guys that I absolutely love and admire. And Shannon's one of them. And so this is amazing stuff. And I'm really blessed by it all.
So who was your the first creator or artist that you interviewed?
That's a good question, because I did some interviews at some cons, but I didn't record them. So like I did sit down with Neil Adams for about an hour one day at a con, which was really cool. And but it wasn't something that I recorded, and I kicked myself in the butt for doing that. So I think the first one that I actually recorded was the guys from Kanto. No, actually it wasn't. It was gosh, I can't think of his name. It was one of the books from Mad Cave Studios, and I'm bad with names, and so I'm caught off guard. But there was a creator from Mad Cave that I interviewed first, and he was the writer of the book. Guy's incredible, and gosh, I wish I could think of that book and his name. I'll post it in the comments, right? I'll let you guys know who it was, but that was my first creator interview, and then of course I did the guys from Kanto after that, and then over at the Washington State SummerCon, I ended up interviewing Howard Chaykin. I was supposed to interview Donnie Cates, but that was a mismatch in scheduling, so that actually didn't happen. I have to look at the screen really quick. All right. So yeah, I mean, so I'm, it's one of those things where I'd love to do more creator interviews. And like I said, once I do Shannon Mayer, I got a couple of things in the works that, I'm working on that I hope to have come to fruition, and I'll drop that knowledge as soon as I know.
So, and I also want to point out that you actually had your very own exclusive come out recently as well, not too long ago. I want to, I never was able to ask you, one-to-one, how did that feel when you first, was asked that? I know Bueller probably came to you and said, let's do this.
Right. So it was amazing. I mean, to be immortalized in a certain sense on a comic book with my logo, it was a joint effort with myself and with Bueller, and I was blown away by it. And thank you, Bueller, because he's the one that started to get it set up. But it was Chess, #1 by Second Sight Publishing, and man, words can't explain just how amazing, and I never thought that I would ever see the day when I would be a part of comics history, even as small as it was. I don't care. My logo's on that book.
Your logo and signature on most.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. I did sign most of the books that came out, so they're out there, and who knows if it'll ever happen again. But I was pretty taken aback by it. It was pretty cool.
Just to make you feel even better, it's kind of worldwide that those comics are, because I do have both issues here with your signature, so they're over in Canada too.
That's awesome. I know some went to Australia. And,
that's fantastic.
Yeah, and so just to think that they're just not just here in the States, but they're international. I hit the international scene, y'all.
Yeah, I think there was like a couple in Canada, wasn't there? I think Bueller was saying like he was shipping out some more to Canada as well. So yeah,
Yeah, there were a couple people from Canada who did buy.
that's fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Like, it struck me as weird. You just all of a sudden changing your symbol and like, what's going on? Like, is he like going to be like, but and now with your channel, you're going to be putting out a lot more reviews. I know you took a little bit of a break, but you're coming back to do some reviews on a TV show that's just hit Prime Video on the 19th.
Absolutely. It's the Wheel of Time series. And that's something that I've never done on my channel before, which is review, any TV or any movies. But the Wheel of Time series is very special to me. I've read it multiple times. I have a deep history with it. And like I said on the video that I posted, I was very skeptical about this series being brought to the screen, because when it was ordered by Jeff Bezos from Amazon, he basically said he wanted his version of the Wheel of Game of Thrones. And as I understand what he means, but you cannot do Wheel of Time like they did Game of Thrones. It would ruin it. And so I don't think they're going to go that direction, thank God. But I'll tell you what, some of the trailers that I've seen of what they are going to give us, I am so excited for this. And so I will be doing reviews of each episode as they drop. Also, I have, up until this last week, I had not posted a video in almost 7 weeks. And so because of what happened with our good buddy Sam passing away, I've been inspired to make more videos, because Sam was always on me about, when are you going to put more videos out, Bob? And so in honor of him, I've started doing videos again. And by the time this comes out, I should have 1 or 2 comic book review videos, which will be coming out. So I know I'm filming one tomorrow, and but looking forward to it for sure.
No, I'm super happy. I've been missing your videos.
Oh, thanks, man.
Like you used to always put them out like at least Sunday nights, where when you put them out mostly, and like at the time I wasn't working, so like they would drop at like 12 a.m. my time.
Oh, there you go.
So I'd be like, I'd be just like waiting for them.
Oh man, I try to be consistent, but it is hard with all the work that I do.
Yeah, I get that now. Like because like whenever I started doing the YouTube and that, I wasn't working, and now that I'm getting back to work, it's trying to figure out like when I can do it, and I'm trying to, now I have this whole new figurization out, like how am I going to do this, when am I going to do this, I have to do this, and like just trying to make time for everything. So I get what you mean.
Absolutely. It is a juggle, and as much as I would like to be on a regular schedule, I'm not going to let that stress me out anymore. I'm just going to put them out when I can, and people are going to have to be okay with that, because I just have too much going on inside of my life to be pinned down to something like that. Because if something comes up, especially on any of the pastoral care and anything like that I do, besides working the full-time job that I have, you never know what's going to happen. And so I'm not going to stress myself out about it anymore. I'll just put videos out as I can, and you know what, that's okay.
That is okay. I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for myself, and I'm all right with that, because the videos you put out, like whether it be reviews or whatnot, it's stuff that you're passionate about it, and you can see it in your eyes, and when you're talking about it, that you're really passionate about what you're talking about.
Well, I'm glad that you see that, because that's one of the things that I'm hoping to bring to the table. I mean, yes, I love this stuff. Yes, I can talk about it, but I want other people to catch the fire. I want other people to understand and know just how amazing this stuff is, and to pick it up for themselves and to check it out. And if people are picking up on the passion, then mission accomplished.
That's what it mostly is, because I can tell you, like, a lot of the stuff that keeps us in is nostalgia. So like it's that passion that it fires us, that continues us. Like I'm still going with Beast Wars, and like I want to say, like, I'm gonna put the link down below from the AOK that Bob sent me, and it was just fantastic. Like they have Beast Wars coming out in comic books now, and I've been picking that up, and just for nostalgia reasons. Like I'm a huge fan of Shadowhawk and Jim Valentino just because of the nostalgia that keeps me there. And then
That's awesome.
growing up with Batman and that Static Shock, like you have that nostalgia. And like DC, they might say like cartoons and like the DC cartoons and the CW shows don't bring in people back into the hobby, but they brought me back in.
It's awesome. I mean, and for me with a lot of those shows and stuff like that, I don't care, what people say about them. Here's the thing. When I was a kid and I saw the Batman 66 show, they embraced the villains. And that's what you want to see. You want to see your hero go up against their nemesis, the villains. The Superman show back in the 50s and 60s, I never understood, even though I watched it, I never understood that show. You got Superman, and they never showed a villain. They always put him up against normal humans. What's up with that? And then later on, when I was growing up, they showed the Incredible Hulk on the TV series. 9 times out of 10, going up against a normal human. Yeah, he went up against Bigfoot, and I think Daredevil was in one show, which was really cool. But normal humans, the Hulk, right? Wonder Woman, going up against normal humans. And for whatever reason, they deemed it like corny to use the villains up against the superheroes. And I thought, you're missing the point. And so all these years later, that's one of the things I appreciated about that CW Flash show. They pulled in some of my favorite villains, and I never thought that I would see them on the screen. I mean, to see Gorilla Grodd, Captain Cold, Mirror Master, all these great Flash villains, man, I don't care what you say, man. That was awesome and a great experience for me. And, I do believe that they do bring in people into comics. Maybe not the big rush that you were hoping for, but they are bringing people in.
Yeah, and I really like what they did with Crisis on Infinite Earths. Like that was fantastic. Like the whole setup between like these worlds, and like they even brought in a lot of like the older movies, like and series. Like I did watch I can't think of the name now either. It was only one season, and it had the Huntress in it, and Birds of Prey, like the TV show and stuff. I watched that. Like they brought back those actresses in the Crisis on Infinite Earths. Like may have only been for a second, but like they played everything throughout like the DC universe, made except for the animations, of course.
Yeah, that Crisis on Infinite Earths was great, and actually they did bring in the animation because what's his name? They did the voice of Batman in the
Kevin Conroy.
Kevin Conroy. And that was great to see him on screen finally, because he's deserved that for a long time. I think he was the best Batman voice ever. So yeah, they did actually bring some of the animated stuff in. So I think that Crisis on Infinite Earths was worth its weight in gold. It was awesome. Even Burt Ward from the original Batman 66 series being on there.
Yeah, that was just craziness. Tom Wellings even came in.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, it was a great smattering of having all these actors come back, and then being able to, say that those were, different iterations of all these heroes on different Earths. That was clever. That's a way to do it.
Yeah. Like, and I grew up with Smallville. I love Smallville. And that at that time, like, I don't know if it was for all kids like my age at that time, but like Superman was it. Like, it's like, oh, that's Superman's like, don't like Superman, like Batman. Like Superman's overpowered and stuff. And Smallville came out, and I just fell in love with like Smallville. Every season of Smallville was just fantastic.
Well, and that's the rub with Superman. That's the rub with a lot of DC characters, because most of them are basically gods, and it's very hard to relate to a god or somebody who has godlike status, and that's always been kind of the issue with some of those DC characters. But when you take and create a property like Smallville, where you can show him when he's younger and that he has problems like you and I do, then you can relate to him better and all of the things that are going on inside of his life. And then you start adding all of the more, super powered type stuff. Cause they did bring a lot of villains into that show, which I thought was really cool. But because of the fact, the way they did it, it was more relatable. And that's not your normal Superman, what you're dealing with in a normal Superman comic or show. So I thought that was clever and really well done.
And I liked how you could sometimes like sympathize with like Lex Luthor.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, I think, is an important thing because, you start getting into, good and evil, and it's not so dry and cut like that in real life. And so you find out that people have these motives that are driving them to do what they're doing. And if you get the backstory on somebody, you'll find out, okay, now I can understand why he's doing that. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's a great perspective to have. And I think they do it much more in comics now than they used to. But for sure, inside of that show, that was a great perspective to have.
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear that you watch the CW as well. And that is it just the Flash that you watch, or?
Oh, no. I definitely watched all of the Arrow series. I did the Flash. I did a lot of the Legends of Tomorrow, but it kind of started to go off with me for a bit, so I kind of stopped that. I loved the Black Lightning show that came out. I wasn't too hip on the Batwoman show. And then what was the other one? Oh, I absolutely loved the Supergirl show. I thought that was great too.
Now, did you watch all of Black Lightning?
Yeah, I watched it all the way through.
I know that they're coming out. They're planning on coming out with a Painkiller series, like they're setting that up at the end. But at the end of Black Lightning, do you get a feel like there could be an Outsider series coming? Just by like how he said, like, "Oh, we'll be around," and like, why would they say that?
Yeah, I mean, it's Greg Berlanti, because that's all the Berlanti verse. That's something that he has stated that he wants to do. It's just going to depend on whether or not him and Warner Brothers are able to collaborate on it. The issue is a lot of the CW shows are starting to their viewership is starting to go down, and so we're losing a few of them. And so they need to get that viewership back up. And if they can do that, then maybe a property like The Outsiders can happen, which I think would be cool. I know that this last 5-episode stretch of The Flash is going to have Black Lightning in it. The first episode just dropped this last Tuesday, and that was pretty cool to see Despero on screen. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to that. But this is all going to depend on what Greg Berlanti can negotiate, and I really hope that he does, because I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I really like Despero. Like a lot of people say like they don't like the CGI, but he was done pretty well, and Grodd was done perfectly in my opinion, and King Shark.
Absolutely. Well, here's the thing. You may not like the animation or the CGI, but here's the thing. This is the first time we're getting a live action version of that character on screen. When I was growing up, you took what you could get because there was nothing else, and I may have not have liked them 100%, but I was still on board because those characters were there. And so to see Despero in any form on a live action show blows me away, and I love it. And I thank Greg Berlanti that he's done it. We may get a better version later on. I don't care. That'd be great. But at least I got to see Despero. Gorilla Grodd is one of my favorite villains. I've always loved that villain for Flash. To get a live action Gorilla Grodd, I mean, that made the whole experience for me. I never thought in my lifetime I would see Gorilla Grodd, let alone King Shark, so.
Yeah, Gorilla Grodd is who doesn't like monkeys?
Well, they created him because back in the 50s and 60s, for whatever reason, if you put a gorilla's face on a comic book, it would sell. And so, let's just create a villain that's a gorilla. That's why they did that.
Oh well, they gave us Grodd.
Grodd.
So the other show that you didn't mention that's now on the CW for the second season is Stargirl.
Oh, Okay, so here's the thing. That first season of Stargirl, I absolutely loved. I thought, I mean, this is what I've been waiting for. Um, so well done. And then I had heard that they were going to bring the second season out on HBO Max. And then when the first part of Stargirl actually started going on the CW, I didn't know, and it was already 6 weeks in by the time I found out that it was going on CW, and I couldn't get, because I used to watch the replays through my cable channel, and I can't do that anymore. I have to pay for it, so I'm gonna have to wait until season 2 actually drops on HBO Max, and then I'll finally get to see it. But out of all those CW shows, I think that one was the one that was the most well done and probably the most comic book accurate.
Yeah, I never heard, like, I just got introduced to Eclipso in season 2, and now I'm like picking up everything Eclipso. Like, they're pretty cheap to pick up, so like that's the kind of good thing about the CW shows, is like you can find out about new characters that you didn't know about, and then go pick them up because the price doesn't hike for CW shows.
True. But I mean, they're using a lot of characters whose, appearances happened way back in the 50s and 60s, more the 60s, I should say. So to pick up some of those like first appearances like that are still pretty spendy, but there's tons of material out there that you can pick up on those characters. So yeah, there's definitely enough to go around, and you don't have to go spend a lot of money to get them. So that's good stuff.
The one character I really did like, he was a villain in season 1, and I got introduced to him by watching Young Justice, and it was his first time ever being on screen, and that's Sportsmaster, and I think they really did him well.
Yeah, that was another great character. I never thought I'd see him on screen either. So, but yeah, I mean, Stargirl has a lot of merit going for it, and I was very excited to see the JLA, and I know that that's happening in season 2, so I'm chomping at the bit to finally get to that, and I can't wait because I'm a huge Dr. Fate fan, and I know he was supposed to show up too.
Yeah, and season 3 is going to be just as wild as the first, and that, or as the second. So I'm super pumped for that. And then we have the series that aren't on the CW show, like Doom Patrol and Titans.
Now, I just got done watching Titans season 3. I'm not sure if I liked it as much as the first 2 seasons. They did open up a lot of things, but hold on one second. Okay. So I will still watch it going forward. But I think they shot themselves in the foot in season 2 in a few different ways, and how they're trying to backtrack on that, we'll see what happens. Doom Patrol, season 2 is there for me to watch. I have not sat down and binged it yet. I plan on doing that this next week. When you guys see this, next week is my Thanksgiving, so I'm off the whole week, and so I will have binged it by the time you guys see this.
Yeah, I'm a little behind on Doom Patrol, but they brought in some different villains this season, so it's interesting.
Yeah,
and
I'm excited to watch it for sure.
Yeah, they brought that. I forget who she's playing, but she, like, Madame Rogue, I think, and it's the woman that played what was her name? Eve, like the first Eve from Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I don't know if you've watched that, but
no, I haven't watched that. And to tell you the truth, I've never really read much Doom Patrol, so watching the show is kind of like my introduction to those characters. So I really enjoyed the first season.
Yeah, I found Doom Patrol at my library, so I'm going to be picking that up and trying to read that. I think it's by Neil Gaiman.
Okay, yeah, there was a run of Doom Patrol by Neil Gaiman, that's for sure. I heard that that's actually one of the better runs. So, I mean, Doom Patrol's been around for years. I mean, that was kind of, when you look at the X-Men, people say that that's who Marvel were trying to copy was the Doom Patrol, because that's what they did back and forth to each other back then. And And so it's been there, they've been there for quite a while. I just have never read very much of it at all. And so, but that's one of those things I will do going forward because I enjoy those characters.
Yeah, what got me into that series right away was just like how the introduction to it. Like you have Alan Tudyk as the narrator at the start, and like he's saying that no, this isn't a story about heroes. This is a story about zeros. And I was like, all right, yeah, I'm sold.
Absolutely. Because that's more relatable, right? I mean, it's not godlike status. These are guys that are misfits, and that's right here, buddy.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like if you could feel related to the character, like that's why Smallville worked. Like going back, backing at that, like you're watching him grow and going through high school, and then you don't realize that like, oh wait, he can't do everything normal. Like he can't join the football team because he could accidentally kill somebody if he hits them too hard. So you never really think of that until you actually get into the mindset.
For sure. No, and again, like I said, it was my first introduction to him, and those type of things. I mean, I love the show. I thought it was really intriguing.
Is there anything else? Like I know the MCU came out with a ton of shows. Are you all caught up on everything?
I'm all caught up on everything except for the Eternals. I still have not broken down and gone to see it yet. I was never a huge Eternals fan, and some of the reviews I've read said, "Hey, you could wait till later." So it's not something that I've been super excited to go see. But maybe over the Thanksgiving break, I'll do that. Everything else I'm caught up on. I am very excited about the Hawkeye series coming out, especially since we may get Kingpin inside of it. It's still a rumor. I'm still holding out hope, but I know we're going to get Echo, which I'm hugely excited about, and maybe Kingpin. And I know as soon as I see Kingpin or Matt Murdock, either one, we'll know by Christmas either way whether or not we're getting Charlie Cox back as Daredevil. And but seeing Kingpin will give me my confirmation that we're going to get it back, buddy. So I'm holding out some hope here.
So did you see the recent Spider-Man trailer?
Yes. You talking about the one that just dropped a couple of days ago?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some things inside of that trailer that were amazing. So, I mean, we're getting Sinister Six, which is beautiful. But I don't know if you've watched the trailer breakdown, but there's that place where you see Sandman up in the rafters and you see the Lizard leap forward and you see Spider-Man swing in. When you see Lizard's face get hit by something it's not there, people are saying that is another Spider-Man, and they CGI'd it out. So if you see Lizard jumping, you'll see his head snap like he's getting hit and there's nothing there. What hit him? And so people are saying that in that scene where you see Spider-Man swinging in, that next to him is another Spider-Man, and maybe in the foreground of that is another Spider-Man, and we may be getting all three. But you watch that Lizard as he's leaping off the building, his head is snapped to the side like something hit him, and there's nothing there. So they CGI'd it out. So
I'm definitely gonna be checking that out after this. I thought you were gonna be talking about when Electro was there and like the lightning came down and it made his mask.
Yeah, which they should have done a long time ago. I didn't like that version of Electro, but as soon as I saw the mask, I was like, okay. And they did it yellow, not blue. So yeah, I was.
Now there was Green Goblin's going to be in it, and if we got all of him and that, but I think there wasn't there like rumor that there's going to be another one like the Hobgoblin.
No, if you that's another thing that was in that trailer breakdown. If you do a close up on that picture that looks like Hobgoblin, he's on the Green Goblin glider, and he's not wearing a helmet. And you got the goggles, and that kind of looks like the Harry Osborn that we got in Spider-Man 3 from the Sam Raimi movies. Now that version of Hobgoblin never had the Green Goblin glider. So in this, you can see it's definitely the Green Goblin glider. And if you look at it in the still, you'll see that it is Willem Dafoe, So he's just got the mask off and he's got goggles on. So we don't know who the actual sixth of the Sinister Six is. And I'm gonna make a guess, and I'm gonna probably say that it'll probably be the Vulture, um, because he's still waiting in the wings here, and so that would make sense because all the rest of the villains there are all villains from multiverse. Not a single one of them is from this universe, and I'm thinking that they're going to have at least one of his villains from this universe there, and the only one that I can think of that would make sense would be the Vulture. So that's who I think the sixth one's going to be.
All right. I don't know. There was like a ton. There's the Green Goblin. There is Sandman. And isn't Venom supposed to show up?
Well, we don't know if he's going to show up in the movie or not. I mean, we got the cut scene at the after credit scene in the Venom movie, and that basically explained that symbiotes have traveled across the multiverse. He said that, and then right when that little shift happens, and he sees the screen, he recognizes Spider-Man. So that's how they're basically showing that Venom knows Earth 616, the Marvel universe, and his battle between Spider-Man. So it's possible he could show up. I just don't think they were ready to do that yet with this movie.
Yeah, because there's a ton happening in this movie, which it begs the question how long it's going to be. And then, but the good thing is that it's going to cross right over and continue on into Doctor Strange in the multiverse, so they can any loose plots that they could deal with at the beginning of that movie.
Absolutely. Can you do me a favor just really quick? Can you just go ahead and talk to everybody? Because I need to break away here for about 2 minutes. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
So guys, this has been fantastic. We're going to be wrapping up things here pretty soon. But before I do that, Whiplash Wednesday is continuing. Next up is Nick Comic Culture, always overcompensating for something with his haul video. Then after that is Big Herm Collectibles. Unfortunately, it will not be a tag team with Sam from Sam's Tangled Web. Rest in peace, Sam. But we still want to get Sam to 1K. Hashtag Sam to 1K in heaven. Let's get him to that. I'm pretty sure Fargate is doing a giveaway. Even though there's nobody to run his channel, we still want to get that dream come true for Sam. So Fargate is doing a giveaway. Go check that out. Then next, a new addition to our Bad Batch lineup is Comics Kings. That's Brandon, and he's joined by Stefan, Missing Link. They'll be chopping it up on Crisis on Infinite rants. What are they ranting about this week? Go check it out. Then, ending the night in fashion is Tomorrow Cinema, chopping it up about, what is it this week? Who knows? You gotta find out, because he's back and he's going full tilt. So you guys are not going to want to miss that. I want to thank everybody for joining us today on Whiplash Wednesday. It's been a fantastic ride. Hopefully everybody has gotten their new Comic Book Day books with no issues. And hopefully everybody has been enjoying our conversation with Bullseye Bob from Everything Comics. Guys, can't do it without any of you guys here. And you're back.
Yeah, perfect timing.
So before we end things, is there any comic books that you think that people besides Kanto want to say that you think people should be reading?
One of the ones that's going to be coming out in the next week is Good Boy from Aftershock Comics. I'm really excited about that. I mean, how can you not be excited about that comic? It's John Wick's dog, man. So I think that one is really good. Primordial has been really good. I'm about to read what is it called? The new Rom V book.
Radio Apocalypse.
Radio Apocalypse. I already know that that's going to be good, and so I'm gonna dig into that tonight. And then I'm really enjoying the Echolands. I think Echolands is one of the most incredibly drawn books that I've seen in a long time, and the story's really starting to evolve. And then that first issue of Venom was good, and then next week, by the time this comes out, the new Hulk, Donny Cates, will be out. I think that's going to be pretty amazing. And then, as always, everybody should be reading Daredevil. Just on a little break, we'll be getting Devil's Reign, which is the event that's coming up. But Chip Zdarsky's doing a bang up job on Daredevil, so definitely check that out.
I'm so happy you said Good Boy. Like I am picking. I pre-ordered that, so that's out. Yeah, that's by the time this airs, it'd be out 2 weeks ago. But yeah, I pre-ordered that, and I know when I was talking with Trish Forstner, she was talking about that, and I think it was a Kickstarter before it became an actual book, because like she said, she did a cover for it.
Ah, that's amazing. Another book that I want to talk about that is really good if you haven't read it yet, but issue number 4 of Shin no Kage came out today. And that's an amazing book, samurai based. And if you haven't read that one, go check out Black Box Comics. You can enter the code Bueller and get 10% off. You don't want to forget that. But they have a lot of great comics over there. But Shin no Kage is, man, I love that. I love that book. And issue 4 comes out today, so definitely check that one out too.
That's amazing. I just want to say thank you again for joining me today. It's been an honor sitting here with you and talking with you. So it was a little nervous mostly at the whole show, but
you don't have to be nervous with me, my friend. We got history now. Anyway, it's been an absolute honor, Travis. Thank you so much for inviting me onto the show. I've had a great time. I always love talking with you. And man, anytime that you want to do this, just let me know. I'm here for you, man.
Thank you so much, guys. Check out Bullseye Bob on Instagram, on his YouTube channel, because he is dropping videos now on reviews. And also check him out every Monday on Bueller's Coffee and Comics Show.
Absolutely.
Station, everyone.
Station.
And as always, stay nerdy, my friends.